McDougall,
Here.
Hagan, Moss.
Here.
Good. So do we have any oral communication today? I guess not. So do we have any agenda changes, requests or deletions? Guess not either. Good. So let's go on to our first agenda, which is approval of draft minutes of special meeting on April 28th, 2016. Do you have any suggestions or comments or any changes to the draft?
I move the minutes be approved.
I second the motion.
All in favor say
Aye.
aye. Good, so we passed that. Okay, the second agenda, election of 2016, LAC chair and vice chair. So it's election time. Okay, so do we have any nominations?
I would nominate June Loy as the chairman. She was the vice chairman last year, and appropriate promotion.
Okay. Do we have second nominees?
I'll second the nomination for sure.
Okay, good. Okay. Okay, so we have the nominee and we have the second. So can we start voting or?
You have, yes, you may vote. You may just take a verbal aye or approval of that as a slate or a person, or you can do a paper vote. That's entirely up to you.
Okay. So I think there are only 4 of us, so probably we just do the verbal. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah.
Okay, so Don nominate June to be our next chair. If you agree, is it the same as the motion? Okay, so in favor of this motion or in favor of this nomination, say aye.
Aye.
Good, thank you. Congratulations.
Unanimous.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yep, tell me what to do.
Oh, no.
Hard-fought battle.
So should she take over?
She will, but we.
After the
you
vice
could go
chair.
ahead and you could go ahead and hand it off to her if you like, and then we can do the vice chair.
Okay, so which way you
You're
want
now
to
in
do?
charge.
Um,
Let's select,
yeah, I mean, I suppose that's what we should do, is
Let's
I'll
select-
do it, but should we do the vice chair thing first?
sure, go ahead and do the vice chair.
So I still, or you preside over the vice chair? I do?
Yeah.
Okay. Good, okay, so do we have any nominations for vice chair?
I do nominate Dawn.
Do we have a second? Bob, you want a second?
I suppose.
Okay, so we still do the verbal voting, okay, everyone? Okay, so June nominated Don as the vice chair. So in favor of this nomination, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, good, good. Congratulations, both of you. Okay,
Congratulations to both.
so it's yours. It's all yours.
You have to promise to help.
Great.
Be careful.
I have to be careful what I ask for, yeah, I know. All right. So,
And we thank Sheena for
and we
her
do
service.
want to thank,
Yes.
yes, thank you
Yeah.
very much.
I think that would be very important that we point out that Sheena's done a really good job for the last year, and we all appreciate it and thank her for her efforts. And I think, Bob, you were the vice chair last year. Oh, no, you were the vice chair,
was
so
the
we need to
vice chair.
thank you as well.
One week, yeah.
And, but Sheena, thank you very much for what you did. I think that was very good.
Oh, thank
And
you.
I hope you had fun doing it.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity. I think I really enjoy doing it, and I enjoy, as I said always, I like to serve the community. And I think the LAC is just like a small community. I think it's my pleasure to serve everyone here. So I'm glad that we have new chair and new vice chair, and LAC will have more things to do, and I think they would lead us to a new direction, and we're very proud of them. Thank you.
And from the library staff's perspective, I wanted to thank you for your efforts in making us much more visible in the Chinese-speaking communities. So that's been a tremendous help to us, and I hope that you will continue in that role.
Of course.
And that is a great thing. And then I think we should welcome Sheena and Bob back, right? Because they're both been chosen to serve second terms. They've both been willing to serve again. It's not the second for Bob, who's been on the LAC for some time.
Yes.
And
Congratulations,
helps
Bob,
make
on
sure
your
we know
28th,
what used to happen.
Yeah, well, I've been on for 6 years, and I just was reappointed for another term, so
Great.
it'll be 9 years. Which is good, because I'm starting to learn how to do things.
Which we really appreciate. That's great. Thank you. Okay, so the next item is a presentation from Harriet Richardson. So Harriet, go ahead.
Good
And we should
evening.
turn our mics off.
Harriet Richardson, City Auditor. So I'm here to present the results of our National Citizen Survey and our annual performance report from 2015. These are two items. You do have a PowerPoint in front of you, and you have a stack of materials. So what I'm going to do is go through the National Citizen Survey results as they pertain to the library. That's this document. And yeah, there's a box with extras in it too. And then I'm also going to go through the performance report, which you have here, as it pertains to the library. We do a third document, which I'm not going to go through tonight, but it's called the Citizen-Centric Report, and the intent of this document is just to take some of the city's financial information and some key performance measures and summarize them in a 4-page document that's easy to read for citizens. So if they want to take a quick look and understand the city's finances, their revenues and expenditures, some of the key performance indicators from the National Citizen Survey, and then a little message in the back from the city manager about changes and where the city's headed on the back page. And this is a document we produce every year also, but it's just intended to be an easy read communication for citizens. So I'm going to start with the citizen survey. And what I'm going to try to do as I go, I think I got it this way, but as I start getting some of the results, I'm going to try and reference some of the page numbers for you. So if you want to open it up, you can do that. This is the 13th year that we did the National Citizen Survey. We contract with the National Research Center, which works in collaboration with ICMA to do the survey. And the intent is to gather resident opinions across a range of city services. And so we surveyed 3,000 households. We used to do 1,200, and we expanded it 2 years ago, primarily because the national trend has been for the response rate to go down and to keep the number of responses up so that we get a statistically valid response. We increased our survey. Our response rate is still down, but we're still getting quite a number of responses. So we got 721 responses back. That's after they deduct for the 25% response rate is after they deduct for responses or for surveys that got returned to us as non-deliverable. So when the National Research Center compiles the results, they weight the responses to reflect the population. So what that means is that they take census data and they look at the census data and they if you look at page 7 in the citizen survey, it'll tell you the categories there that they actually use to weight. And what it means is that they try and balance the results to represent the population and certain demographics of the population. So, for example, say the population is 52% female and 48% male, but they get a 50-50 response. What they do is they'd weight the female responses slightly less than 100% each, and the male responses slightly more than 100% to balance it out the way, to reflect the population. So when we, 2 years ago, we also started, well, prior to that, we started doing north-south divide, just to kind of see, are there differences in responses between north and south? And then 2 years ago, we started dividing it into geographic areas, and we had to keep them contiguous just because, for simplicity, for the way that they do the mailings. And so if you look at pages 4 and 5, you'll see the maps, and that lists also the neighborhoods that are in each of the areas. So on page 4, you'll see the north-south divide, which separates along the Oregon Expressway. And then on page 5, you see the 6 neighborhood groups that we put together. And so it lists on each page which neighborhoods are part of which group. One of the things we do notice, Area 4, throughout the survey, tends to respond not as positively. So that is one thing you'll notice as I go through the results, that there's sometimes where they do respond a little more positive, but their overall responses tend to be a little less positive than all the rest of the areas. And so by doing it all these different ways, if we count the responses for the 3,000 surveys that we mailed and the 721 responses, we get a margin of error of plus or minus 4%. What that means is that if we administered the survey again, we should get the same results within a margin of adding 4 or subtracting 4.
I just wanted to ask one more. Just one question. So with the geographic subgroups, so do they weight the statistics according
Yes.
to the number, just
Yes.
as they do with other things?
Yes.
Okay, and I assumed that was what you meant. But,
Yes.
I just wanted to ask.
And was it the city's decision to use the north-south delineation for some reason?
You know,
Or did NCS do that, or?
Well, NCS actually does it for us, but that decision is made by us to do it. But it was actually done several years ago before I was in the city, so I don't know what the basis was for deciding to do that. I think at the time it was more because of some current concerns about the South saying, we don't get as many services, and they wanted to see how they really felt about the services, and we've just continued to do it. The neighborhood groups helped us kind of get some sense of where the differing opinions are, because then it can help the city when they're thinking about the decisions they make, whether or not it's going to impact one neighborhood area more than another.
And I think your comment about Area 4 is interesting in terms of the different responses. Is there any analysis of why is that?
So that's one of the limitations of doing a survey like this. You ask the questions, you get the responses, but you don't know why they think what they think.
Right, thank you.
So,
I can give you some answers on it. First of all, the reason that the various areas are where they are is they were originally picked for census groups. So they took a census tract or several census tracts, and they lumped it together to make an area, which was also considered, let's call it, a single or a group of neighborhoods. Okay?
they're groups of neighborhoods. We actually worked with a variety of people in coming up. We came up with the which neighborhood should be in each group. But we went through a process to decide that. We worked with Tommy Fehrenbach, who was our economic development manager at the time. There were several people who had input. We talked to some council members. There was actually a lot of input in how we came up with these particular areas. But they do use census tract data to
Yeah, that was when
divide it.
when this was done originally 13 years ago. They just took census tracts, and then it's been, let's say, modified slightly over the years as they tried to incorporate neighborhoods which spread over more than one census tract, but they were more like this neighborhood in that census tract than that neighborhood in that census tract. So there's been a
Yeah.
little bit of movement. And the reason that Area 4 is less satisfied than the others is because the city spends very little effort and very little money providing services in that area. And has a disproportionate amount of development which they've allowed, which the city council has finally recognized that, oh gee, maybe we shouldn't allow all this development in just South Palo Alto. Maybe we ought to start spreading it out more and put it near the transit centers and so on. So the people in Area 4, where I happen to live, and I know the people who are active there very well, just basically feel the city hasn't been paying any attention to them, and that's why you see it marked down. And one of the things I noticed you don't have in here, and maybe I missed it, is education level. And
No, so, well, there's some demographics. I didn't compile the demographics for this purpose, but they do ask some demographics, and education is not one of the ones that they ask. And so this survey is a standard survey that the National Research Center does. It's, we do add some custom questions. Questions 1 through 13 are the standard. If you go to page 56, that's where the survey starts. Those are standard questions, except for beginning with question 14, we had some custom questions that we added, and we do some custom questions each year. And then the demographic questions, those are pretty much the NRCs. However, 2 years ago, we did we asked the NRC to break down question D9 on housing costs and D12 on income level, because we thought that would be more helpful for Palo Alto's purposes. They had like 3 or 4 categories, and there were too wide of ranges to reflect differences for Palo Alto. So we asked them to break down D9 and D12 into more categories.
one of the things that this misses is the education level of Palo Altans. 83% of the people over 25 are college graduates, and a majority of them have advanced degrees. Mm-hmm. There are more people with masters and doctorates than with masters. And it's rare that we have less than 6 Nobel laureates living in town.
So, yeah, we don't.
I've got 2 of them living within half a mile of me.
Yeah, they don't ask that on here. We do have a few other custom questions embedded within the standard questions because they can work there. Those are the ones on question 10 related to utilities, and also the one on your neighborhood branch libraries. That's one that we've built into this, and city-sponsored special events. But those have been built in for a while, and so they continue to ask those for us. So the way the survey works, the format of it, if you start, there's a lot of explanation from the NRC about how they do the survey. But if you go to to page 10, I can sort of explain the layout of the report for you for each question. So what you'll see at the beginning is question 1, and then you'll see several tables related to question 1. So the first one is just, this is what everyone told us, everyone answered, and you'll see questions for don't know. Typically, when you're calculating responses, you don't include don't know because you're calculating the responses of the people who had an opinion, not the people who didn't. So the next table excludes the don't know, and then those counts are the ones that serve as the basis for the remaining tables. The historical results, we put 10 years of data in there. And then the geographic subgroups, the responses there don't include the don't knows. And then the last one is the benchmark comparisons. So there's, in the back of this booklet, there's a list of communities that do a survey. Some of them do the National Citizen Survey, some of them do their own survey or some other services survey. And the National Research Center tracks the data from all of those surveys, and so they try to align the questions with their own. And so that's why when you see number of communities in comparison, the number varies because that question may not have been asked in one of the other surveys. So they compare us where they can, but where they can't, you'll see a lower number in benchmark communities. And then that table tells the average rating for all of the benchmark communities where Palo Alto ranked in comparison to the numbers. So as an example, Palo Alto has a place to live. We were 97th out of the 341 communities who answer a similar question to that rated it excellent or good. And then similar to benchmark, the last one, comparison and benchmark, you'll see several different categories there. Similar means we're within a range of 10%. With lower, we're outside by 5 points, or higher, outside, we're higher by 5 points. And then, within it would be plus the 10%, so 15. And then much lower or much higher is outside of those ranges. So that's the format for all of the standard questions until you get to question 14 where it's more custom.
The benchmark, can you tell me again what the benchmark is? I'm sorry.
So if you go to the very back, you'll see a list of cities and counties.
Yeah.
And there's almost 500 listed there. But what the NRC does is they capture survey data from all of these jurisdictions, whether the NRC does the survey or some other group does the survey. For example, Portland, Oregon is in here. Portland does its own survey. They don't contract with anyone to do the survey, but yet they're included in these benchmarks. So the NRC gathers all this information. If there's a question asked in whatever survey that jurisdiction does that's similar to what the NRC asks, then they can compare us.
Okay.
So what I'm gonna do is get into some of the results. There's a lot of numbers here, and I don't know that I really want to sit and read a bunch of numbers to you, but I'll point out some of the key things here. And so what I've tried to do is capture the overall, some of the overall categories, and then focused on library categories for you. So on slide number 6, you'll see the key results for livability. So these primarily come from question 1, except the last one, quality of services, comes from question 11. And
I think it's slide number 5.
yes, slide number 5. And so these are the standard questions that just want to ask people, what do you think about living in Palo Alto? What is the quality of life? What do you think of a place to live? What do you think of your neighborhood as a place to live? And then also, what do you think of of Palo Alto as a place to raise children? So on quality of life, overall, it was 88%. One key thing about that rating this year is it's the first year that in all the years we've done the survey that it's been below 90%. So some things have changed in Palo Alto. Some of the things, sometimes when you do a survey, it's really a reflection of the mood of people at the time they do the survey. If you have some events going on that may have triggered sort of a less positive atmosphere among the residents, that might trigger something like that to be lower. What's interesting is then you look at Palo Alto as a place to live, and it's still in the 90s, 92%. So there's some disconnect there between quality of life, but yet they like living here, and we don't know what that disconnect is from a survey like this. Neighborhood has a place to live, 90%. All of these are still pretty good responses in the upper 80s to 90s, and then Palo Alto has a place to raise children. Interesting, when you start looking across the neighborhood groups, that's where you start being able to see where the differences are. And like I said, with Area 4 generally being the lower of the neighborhoods, you'll generally see that the south rates lower than the north in all of these responses. In all of these questions here, I don't have it on the slide, but all of them did rate similar to the benchmark jurisdictions. The next slide, slide 6, you won't see something like this in the survey booklet itself. The National Research Center tries to categorize all the questions into 8 facet areas, and these are the 8 facets that they have. Last year, what they did is they took the year before last, they took all of the questions and they broke them up into these facets, but it was very difficult for someone who wanted to follow the survey and just see what were the results, because you had to know what facet it was. So most people told us that wasn't very helpful to them because it was too much work to try and look at the results. So we asked them just to give us the results in the order of the questions, but then they gave us the data, and we did the summaries that you see on this slide based on they told us which question goes with each facet. So the three that really kind of pertain to library services are community engagement, education and enrichment, and recreation and wellness. So when you look at the average percent rating excellent or good, community engagement, that's the lowest one. Education and enrichment, they're thinking Palo Alto does a pretty good job of it. But you look at the range of the responses, and you can see why some of them come down. Some of the questions within that category rated pretty low, while others rated pretty high. And then the last column on this slide, there's a kind of a summary question on each facet that says, how important is it to you for the city to focus on this area over the next 2 years? And so we pulled the responses from that for this last question, last column. So if you go to slide 7, most of these questions here come from question 10 in the survey, which you'll see the responses beginning on page 27. The variety of library materials. So there was a decline in the ratings this year, but if you look at over time, we kind of had ratings in the 70s, and then in 2012, they began jumping up into the 80s. So you'll see some improvement. That's, even though you see fluctuations, you're still seeing it being within the margin of error of a survey. Neighborhood branch libraries, same thing. You saw ratings in the 70s, and then they jumped into the 80s. The 89% and the 91% for public library services are the highest ratings that the libraries have had since the survey began. My guess is that people are really enjoying the work that was done on the new libraries, remodeling all the libraries. It coincides, I think, with the time when it came. Oh, thank you, that'd be helpful. People are recognizing the change.
I think we should recognize that the only reason those numbers are that high is in fact Monique's contribution. It may not be totally, but it's an important part of it, I think.
And I think that when you look at the 78 for 2014, I mean, that was a time when people were sort of disgruntled about the Mitchell Park Library and the construction issues with that. But then once it was done and Rinconada's done, then look at what you get. You get this really high score. So people were happy with the results.
I think the 78 actually validates all the results. If they were all 89s, you know that during that time frame there was a great deal of angst, and the fact that this caught it and recorded it
Yeah.
sort of validates everything else.
Yeah.
Oh, you mean it validates the results of the survey?
Yeah.
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 Yeah,
The survey,
the survey is something,
the survey is actually
numbers are something we
capturing
can
what
look
we
at.
would understand to be true.
Right.
One of the ones that puzzles me is the big drop in customer service by employees.
Yes, that one was interesting to me too. I have an arrow pointing down right here because it went from 81% to 74%. And public information services went up a little bit. So one important thing to remember about both of those two is those are citywide, and while there is likely a library component in them, they are not just library. So public information services can come from all sorts of departments in the city, but library is a component, so I put it in there. And the same with customer service. It may not reflect the library, but it may reflect other departments that people are not happy with the customer service they get. So, but because you are a customer service department, I put that question in here.
So,
It didn't specify which.
It does not specify. It does not specify, and that's why I
Okay.
wanted to put it in here so you know that there is a customer service question, but that it's not going to reflect only the library.
so,
We don't really know where it came from. the library could be 90%, and
Correct.
Public Works could be 60.
Correct.
We don't know.
Correct.
Or vice versa.
Yes, yes.
And I guess I have a
I don't
question just about how to interpret all of this. So, does each one of these lines track to a specific question on the
They do.
survey? It
They
does.
do.
And so when we go, if we go to try to coordinate between the book and your slides, it'll be fairly obvious
Yes.
which one we're
The-
talking about.
Yes, so,
Okay.
for example, if we go, let's just do one so you can kind of see. Let's
Oh,
go to
no, I
page-
believe you.
Yeah, if
That's
you go
okay.
On page 26, question 10, you'll find each of those there. I have it marked right here, Public Library Services, Public Information Services. So I marked the ones here that I put in here. So they are there.
Oh, I see. You have them highlighted. Wow.
No, the highlights,
Oh.
the highlights are,
Oh,
that's part of the way the
Oh, here it
report's
is.
produced.
Variety.
The highlights are to tell you that there's more than a margin of error difference in the highest and the lowest.
I see.
ratings.
Okay.
So if you look at page 26 here, I'm taking it from the historical results table, on page 26. And you'll see those numbers match up.
I see. Okay, great. Thank you.
So for these ones right here, I'm going through the historical results, but I'm not putting the neighborhood breakdowns in it just because it's a lot of data, but that is all in the report that I gave you. So the next slide, slide 8, talks about enrichment. There are questions about enrichment in general. Opportunities for education and enrichment. Public places where people want to spend time. You know, you come to the library, you want to spend time here. I know people come here and spend all day here. But it's an opportunity, it feeds into opportunity for enrichment. Adult education opportunities and opportunities to attend cultural arts and musical events. So I know that, again, these are questions that can overlap, for example, with Community Services Department, but it's not broken down specifically by library, but there is a library component to these in what you do. So the first 3 questions we only started asking in 2014, but they all rate what is considered good. However, adult education opportunities, the 83% for this year did rate lower than other similar jurisdictions, other jurisdictions. And then the 79%, 81, 79%, there's not much difference there, but you saw a big jump from that 69%. I'm not sure why it dropped so much in 2013. That's almost an outlier year compared to all the other years where it's been pretty stable.
I assume Stanford opportunities are included in people's responses or at least attitudes,
I would think that they think that, but again, we don't know.
right? Because the Bing would obviously influence that.
Yes. And then more enrichment questions on page 9, slide 9. City-sponsored special events, that was a custom question added in 2014. It's been stable. People are pretty happy with the city-sponsored events, but probably some room for more opportunity there. Opportunities to volunteer. I'll talk about this one a little bit more when we get into the performance report. It's gone down over the years, but it's still similar to what other jurisdictions experience, so it's not out of line. And then opportunities to participate in community matters, that's been pretty stable over the years. 2012 and 13, they didn't ask the question, and then they put it back in the survey, so that's why you see that gap there. And then openness and acceptance of the community toward people of diverse backgrounds. I put that question in because I think that as part of this presentation, because I do think that as a customer service organization, you do serve people with diverse backgrounds, so I thought that was relevant to you. Again, that's one that went down, and it's also lower than other jurisdictions, but it's also a question that applies citywide and not just to the library, although there is a library component to that.
And I know that you're gonna talk about the volunteer thing, but that's opportunities to volunteer, not even just the city, it's just in general.
In general, right.
Correct.
Right.
Okay.
And there's a, and in the city, again, there's the library, you have a lot of volunteers and so does community services, so, yeah. And then the next slide, continuing on enrichment. This one, instead of asking the question, how do you rate it, excellent, good, very good, or fair or poor, they asked how often you did it within the last 12 months. And so they broke the question down into various categories and then consolidated the ones that were that came out to at least once in a year. So the categories were 2 times or more a week or more, 2 to 4 times a month, once a month or less, or then not at all. And so the first one is using the libraries or their services. And again, 2014, you saw it down and then going up. That should reflect the timing of the reopening of the libraries. And then attending a city-sponsored event, that's another question that expands citywide. So some of those events are sponsored by the library, but not all of them, and that has gone up. And actually, Palo Alto does have a higher percentage of its residents who attend a city-sponsored event than other communities. One question I did not put in here, as I was going through this after I'd finished this and it was all printed, there was one more question that I should have added to this, and that was whether or not you volunteered your time to some group or activity in Palo Alto within the last 12 months. So for 2015, it was 46%. That was up from 40, but the average has been in the mid-40s to low 50s. One year in 2009, it was 56, but otherwise, we're right in line with where it's been. And again, that is higher than other jurisdictions. So even though it doesn't seem like it's a really high number, it's actually pretty high for that percentage of your people be doing volunteer work.
And it's interesting to look at that number relative to the previous one, which was people think there aren't opportunities.
Yes, and that's why it's hard to just really analyze this because you don't really know what people thought, and maybe people want more opportunities to volunteer, even though they do a lot of it already.
I was kind of puzzled on this page 10. The 2 charts use the public libraries and importance of education enrichment have exactly the same figures.
And see right here, I say correction. I'm going
Oh,
to tell you
okay.
about the correction.
Okay,
So-
it's not exactly the same.
It's not exactly the same. So what happened here was, since we went to SharePoint, we're still trying to figure out when we create documents, it's not letting you just create things the same way. And so I was having to copy a table and then change the numbers, and I forgot to change the numbers. So on percentage, rating as essential are very important. The importance for the city to focus on education enrichment in the next 2 years. Delete the numbers in 2006 through 2013. They didn't ask the questions in those years. And then in 2014, changed 68% to 71% and changed 76% to 67%. And that aligns with question 13 on page 31. I'm glad I caught it before I could tell you why. So every year we do ask some custom questions. We can ask some open-ended questions, but we try to limit that because of the space and because of the cost. But last year, the Parks Department, Community Services, was working on the 2 things, the Parks Master Plan, and also then they were working with the Palo Alto Unified School District on a master plan for Cubberley. And so they asked a question about priorities for Cubberley, and they listed some options, and then they had a question that said other, an option that said other, and if they said other, then you could write in what else you might want use for it. So there were several people who responded that they wanted to make sure there was space there for for the Friends of the Palo Alto Library and for them to be able to hold their book sales. So that's what this question reflects. And then they also had a question that said, what one improvement can the city of Palo Alto make to its parks, arts, or recreation activities and programs to better serve the community? And that was just a straight, open-ended question. So even though it was intended as a CSD question, we did get some library responses, and those are reflected here. So the first one, better website access, they mentioned specifically that it's hard to find what's happening at the library on the city's website or the Arts Center. They mentioned those two specifically as examples. And then the second one, there was something that wasn't readable, so that's why you say, you see that question mark. There was a word in there that we couldn't read the person's writing. People were asking for more library hours, better inventory and selection of books, and then the library book return from the car.
So can we ask also, so, 721 people had an opportunity to answer the open-ended questions, but they didn't have to, is that correct?
Correct.
So this tends to be the comments that you did get, as opposed to you got 100 comments that said we need better inventory at the libraries?
Right, so if you look in the back, beginning on page
The back of the book?
23, question 23, beginning on page 35, you'll see the open-ended responses that we got for Coverly. And then, and these are verbatim, so you could count them up to see how many responded that. So
I
you'll see
see, okay.
several that respond about the needing more library space at Coverly. And then question 24, beginning on 37, is the open-ended responses. The first ones all pertain to park facilities. When you get into page, let's see, page 47, at the bottom there, we have a section that says other, not community services department, and we put all the verbatim responses there. So we picked these ones up out of that section.
Okay, great, thank you so much.
So we also try to make this information available to anyone who wants to see it in a more interactive way. So we publish the report, but we also put it on the city's open data website. They have had a little bit of problem getting last year's data on there, and they're working on it right now. Something wasn't working quite right, so they're working on updating that. The other thing that we've done is we've used Tableau software. It's a data visualization software, so you can go into it, and I have the link here. You can go into it and say you pick a question pertaining to the library, and you want to see the demographics of the people and who responded what. You can select the different categories of demographics to the question and say, tell me how many males or females, how the males and females responded to this question, or by age group or by income level. So you can break it down and see, and it's just all interactive, and you can select whatever you want and kind of play with the data to get more details about who thought what.
Did you say that was Tableau?
Tableau,
Tableau,
yes.
yeah.
And we have the link to it right here that you can just go in and play with it.
Great.
You can't damage it, so you can just play with it however much you want. We can damage it, but you can't. So the access you get. So the second part of this, I wanted to go through the performance report, which we have been doing for 14 years. And we have two sections that we changed the report format a couple of years ago. It used to be department data, graphs for the department and data tables. Yes.
Harriet, before you get away from that, how much usage is there of the Tableau software? Do we
You know,
know?
I'd have to ask IT if they can give us some stats. I know that there are people who go in and use it quite a bit. And I know some of our council members have gone in and really played with it, and also members of the Planning and Transportation Commission.
If I suggested that both of those were really scary? Monique, the reason I ask is I think one of the things I've previously suggested is that a program that we might want to have as the library is something like a course in Tableau, that we've done courses in Google, and how to search in Google, offering a course in Tableau, since you've got data to play with.
Right.
Could be really interesting relative to, all of this data, and now what do you do with it? How do you engage, because that goes back to your original question, the engagement with the citizens.
Right.
On all of this, so.
Right. So, up until 2 years ago, our report was about 137 pages, I believe. And it had a lot more graphs in it. We basically had, for each department, graphs and data tables that supported it, and we pretty much graphed everything that was in data tables. And it was really a lot of, graphing that didn't necessarily need to be graphed. Did I just, sorry, I hit it with my hand. And so we tried to scale that back somewhat, and we also tried to organize the graphs a little bit more in themes. So what we've done is we've pulled all the data tables to the front into themes. The first 24 pages you'll see have that. And then as we get further back, then we still maintained all of the data tables. We actually expanded those from 6 years of data to 10 years of data. The library's data tables are on pages 35 and 36. And then some of the graphs, there's graphs that pertain to the library on page 12. And I thought 18, does 18 have one? No, just page 12. But what I wanted to do is just kind of tell you a little bit about that. So we do include some benchmark comparisons when we can, but we have 10 years worth of data. It includes spending information, revenues, expenditures, staffing, workload, and then performance data. So if you look at slide 14, I've just summarized here a lot of the data from the back of the report on the expenditures, the FTE counts, the number of residents served per FTE, the volunteer hours, and then the number of open hours for the library, and the number of FTEs per 1,000 hours of open hours. So when I talked about the volunteers, the opportunities to volunteer, when you compare that to this, you see that the hours have gone down, but yet the percentage of opportunities to volunteer is down from fiscal year 2008, when it was 86%. But since then, those opportunities have been right in the 80, 83, in that really narrow difference within a margin of error, even though people have volunteered fewer hours. So I just wanted to kind of point out that, the opportunities to volunteer are still pretty high, but the number of volunteer hours are down. So people are recognizing that they have the opportunity, but for some reason aren't volunteering as much, even though that other slide does show that people, 46% of the residents do volunteer. Whether or not they volunteer at the library or somewhere else is another question. So I just wanted to kind of compare those here. When you look at all of these statistics and kind of think about in the citizen survey, the questions relating to public library services and the neighborhood branch libraries being rated excellent or good, as shown on, that I showed you on slide 7, those ratings went up, but you see there's sort of a correlation. I didn't do a scientific mathematical correlation analysis, but as you see the dollars going up, the expenditures, and these are operating expenses, not the capital expenses, but when you see those going up, the hours of operation going up, it correlates. There's that factor as well as the libraries being built. So we can't distinguish which is which from what people think, for what people think. But I think it's just helpful to be aware of all of those different numbers.
And I did want to mention, you were right, there is more library information on page 19 of the
19,
report.
okay, I was thinking 18. Yes, okay. So then, the next slide talks about library services, and, you can see, and again, it ties into the satisfaction that you see on the citizen survey. Both the number of titles and the number of items available to residents, and items per capita, have increased quite a bit over the, last 10 years. And, also, the average days to make an item ready for checkout has declined. So having them available quicker, having more of them, having newer libraries, you all put it all together and you end up with the overall higher satisfaction rating that you see. The next slide shows how often people visit the library, the number of card holders, and the percentage of residents who have a library card, and then the checkouts per capita. And again, all of those are going up, well, two of them are going up. It's interesting that you see number of card holders going down, number of visits went down since 2006, but both of them have started climbing back up since the new libraries opened. So I think that's something to just be aware of. I think 2014, you obviously had some things going on there that affected residents' ability to use the libraries, to use them as much as they did in the past.
This would imply that they burned their library cards in the parking lot or something. I mean, if the number of card holders went down.
Yeah, I don't know how it goes down.
It could have been a purge, you know, there was a time where we had not cleaned up the database as much, we were not following the usual schedule.
Oh, okay.
So that had a lot to do with it. The other factor too is that we've placed a heavier emphasis on use of materials outside the library, which this does not capture the visits or the checkouts per capita. We're not counting the electronic media as part of this count. So this is people holding a card, coming into the library and doing a
Checking
traditional checkout.
Yeah. So if you go to the next slide, we compare with other cities, how much people check out of the library. One thing that surprises me on this, I would expect Palo Alto to be a little bit higher in here, simply because we have the university here. And it surprises me that Berkeley is so low because they have a university there. But we're right in the middle of the pack here. So this checkouts per capita, you'll notice that we're a year behind on this chart, and it's because we're getting the data from the state for this particular chart. So this is actually, you'll see the 20.4 matches 2014, even though the rest of the data is 2015. So I just wanted to make sure you understand why there's that difference.
Yeah, we're very familiar with that phenomenon.
And Nate, does this reflect hard copy checkouts as opposed to electronic checkout?
It would be the same as the previous chart.
It depends on how the other libraries are counting their checkouts. The state library does give you guidelines for every kind of thing, but what they end up reporting may or may not match that. So the data's only as good as the data they provided.
Yes.
Right.
And the state doesn't validate it. They take what they get.
They take what they get, they allow us a chance to correct any mistakes, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Well, in order to have really valid comparisons, because 2014 was when we had branches closed, you know, so obviously, people can't check out a book if you can't get into the building.
Correct.
Or visit.
Right.
So the current data, which we don't have, would be more representative and give us a better idea of how we're doing compared to the other
Yeah, and
libraries.
we'll have that coming up, you know, and we'll be collecting the data again this fall for the next year for the state,
Yeah,
so.
it's gonna be
But the
a while before we get it from the state and can use that
Correct.
with ours. But I wouldn't worry too much about the data showing that we're doing worse than other cities, other branches, other libraries, because it was an anomaly for our system, because we didn't have everything available. to
Correct.
people.
And I've continued to remind the council, the city manager, everyone of that, but until we get into probably next year or the year after, that's when we'll really start to see the full, real impact of additional hours, additional materials, and the libraries being fully
Yeah.
open.
Yeah, and I agree with that. It's good to continue to underscore that information, as well as the fact that this comparative information, when we look at it, is already almost, it's a year and a half old or 2 years, when we first get the comparison. So it makes evaluating that trend even harder, because it's just old.
Yeah.
So when you go to slide 18, these are programs, and this does specifically focus on library programs. And when you compare it to the citizen survey questions that are more broad and address enrichment opportunities throughout the city rather than just for the library, here you can see that the library has increased their attendance, the number of participants to both all across the board, and team participants. So when you look at the adult education opportunities in the citizen survey, when they say only 83% rated as excellent or good, but yet when you look in general, overall opportunities for education and enrichment, you see 92%. Then you can see some of that reflected here with what the library does by having some specifically focused programs. So I think there was something that came up in the budget just this last week about increasing opportunities for adults through community service. And I'm not quite sure what it was, but I know there was something in the budget that came up on that, or reducing their fees or something.
Yeah, it was making, creating an option for low-income adults.
Yeah.
To get a discount on their participation fees for community services.
Yeah.
Programs, because they had covered all other age groups, just not adults.
Yeah. Okay, and so that kind of covers everything that I was going to cover for tonight, but I am happy to address any other questions that any of you have. And again, this is all available, this is available on the city's auditor's website. If you click on the city auditor's website, on the side, there's a section that says reports, and you'll find it under the section that says performance report.
And that, what's available on the website is all of this?
All of this that I gave you.
But I was meaning the.
This isn't on the website.
Right, okay.
I prepared that for tonight.
Right.
But all of this is available on the website.
Would this be used in any other?
No, this was tailored to you, so
Okay.
I've done another one tailored to the Planning and Transportation Commission. But they aren't on the website. We probably could put them on the website, but they aren't. If you want it electronically for the library website, I can do that too.
Well, I was just concerned in this particular case.
I would fix
We
that one.
keep bringing up that issue of the library's closed, and so I would have put an asterisk somewhere on page 17 that said, by the way, that was when the library is closed. Well, Monique makes the point that she's continually reminding people, and this doesn't help her remind people because it leaves it off.
Right, yeah. But, it's statistics, right? So
Yes.
I'm okay with it. And I like having that conversation because then you remind people, oh, yeah, that's right. It hasn't been that long,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
And Monique reminds all of the new employees when we do our when the city does the new employee orientation, the new employees all come in to meet the executive leadership team at our weekly meeting, and Monique always reminds them that they're eligible for a library card and that where the libraries are. So she promotes it, yes. So, any more questions?
I have one. What about the rest of you guys? Question?
I think your presentation is wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so the other question that I had that it might be addressed in there, is there any question that the respondents are asked that lets us know whether they're newish to Palo Alto? Or
Yes.
Okay,
So, if you go to the back, it's the D questions, the demographic questions.
Uh-huh.
On page 61, we ask them how long they've lived in Palo Alto, question D6.
okay,
And so that's one of the things, like if you're playing with the tableau, you want to know, is it
Right.
the newer people, the long-term people who have
yeah.
answered that way, that you could, that's a way to see.
Okay, good. I'll look for that,
Okay.
just for interest.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. I really think that you did a really thorough job. It's great to have somebody be so on top of the statistics and so enthusiastic about them. So, thank you very much. Bob, did you have any other questions? You look like you might.
Yeah, I was looking for a comparison by department. We've seen that before, how people rated various city departments. Do you have that included in?
That is not part of the
In the survey?
survey, so.
It's not in the citizen survey?
No, because we don't ask by department. This is a standard survey, and we don't ask for ratings by department.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that, it's actually never been asked, department by department, because they do it kind of nationally.
Well, no, there have been surveys taken, I don't know, which ones
Yeah, it
they
would
were,
be
but
something different than
there have
this.
been other city surveys taken where people were asked to rate departments and services.
So that was something probably done internally rather than this.
Yeah, I don't- well-
Developed internally rather than
You know,
this.
it may have been, or it may have been some outside group coming in and doing it, but typically, when people are asked, how do you rate city services? Number one is fire. Number two is police. Number three is libraries. And that's been true for the last 10 or 15 years. And then they get the other ones that are, street cleaning and public works and all the others, and they're much lower down than the top three. And so I'm just wondering if that, obviously that hasn't been in part of this survey. so-
Right, right.
Okay.
That it?
Thank you, Harriet.
You're welcome.
I appreciate it.
Yes,
Thank you, Harriet. Okay, so we have a presentation, is that from you, Jenny? Or me? Oh, okay.
We're ready.
Okay,
We are ready.
thank you.
So while we're here, I will say that TLAB stands for the Teen Library Advisory Board. And so I thought it would be an opportunity for you to meet a couple of members and have Jenny talk about what the TLAB does for the library, and to introduce librarians. And so I'll turn it over to Jenny. Of course, we forgot, oh yeah, June, school's out, kids go away, they do things, so, so we're very fortunate to have them all here. You're all welcome to sit if you like for now. And you could sit if you want, or you could stand here. We have, you have about 30 minutes, 25 to 30 minutes.
Okay, so good evening, everybody. And first of all, I want to thank you for inviting us here to your meeting tonight to tell you all about TLAB. And TLAB stands for Teen Library Advisory Board. And so we have, I'm actually not going to do most of the presentation. I'm just going to introduce our new fairly new teen librarian at Mitchell Park. And we have 3 teen TLAB members who are going to talk for a little while too. But I did want to just give you a little tiny bit of the history of TLAB. So during the time when Mitchell Park and the main library were closed due to the building projects, our teen services were reduced a little bit because we didn't have any space and we didn't have many teen or youth librarians at that time. But now our new libraries are open and we have these beautiful teen spaces for our teens, both at Mitchell Park Library and at Rinconada. And we also have 7 youth librarians, 4 of which work with teens in some capacity or another. And Gina is one of those librarians, Gina Martinez, and she is the teen librarian who works at Mitchell Park. So we recognised when Gina came on board, which was about a year ago, our priority was to get the T-Lab up and running again, because we recognised that if we're going to have a successful and valuable teen programme in the library, we really needed the input from the teens, and we needed their advice too. So, and we not only needed their ideas, but we needed some actions. We need things to happen with these ideas. So, and through our work with the developmental assets, we know that teens really need to have a voice and to feel valued by their community. And so the library is in a good position to show teens how much we value them. And through their T-Lab service, not only do they help the library and the wider community, but also it gives them an opportunity to grow in confidence and self-esteem. So I am now going to introduce you to Gina, who's going to tell you a little bit more about how T-Lab was set up. And then after that, she is going to introduce you to some of her T-Lab members. So thank you, Gina.
Hello. Hello. So my name is Gina Martinez, and I'm the teen librarian at Mitchell Park Library. And I have a wonderful group of T-Lab members whom I oversee. I have Tiffany, I have Ujwal and Christine, and they'll each come up and introduce themselves a little bit later. But first, I want to let you know how excited I am to get an invitation to come here and speak to you today. We've been working on some really great teen programs that they've helped me with. And I feel really lucky because they're not only an awesome group, but they really show me what it means to care for teens in Palo Alto. Yesterday, or 2 days ago, one of my other T-Lab members, Michaela, she's not here today, but she wanted to come. She said to me, after I was telling her about traffic, and because I'm not from around here, so I had to commute, and it takes over 30 minutes in rush hour traffic. So I was kind of venting to her a little bit, and she asked me, what's your main motivation to even come to work? And I said, well, you guys, the teens. So I realized at that moment that that is so true. This is my motivation to come to work every day, and it's actually a position that I really, really am grateful for every day I work. So when I was first hired a year ago, my supervisor, Jenny, said my first top priority was to restart up T-Lab. So the first thing I did was I interviewed, recruited, handpicked about 20 members at first. And then we had teen librarians, and we interviewed them all. And it was a long process. It took about a week, but we narrowed it down. I remember teens, you guys all looked really great. You guys were all dressed up. Some of you guys were nervous. Some were very shy. And I remember one girl was trembling. She was so scared she was trembling. And I remember thinking to myself, you can do it, you can do it. And we actually eventually had her on board. She was one of the 13 generation, I call it Generation 1, of T-Lab members. And so T-Lab is made up of a diverse group. We got people from Palo, Gunn, JLS, Jordan, and so they're all different ages and all grades from 8th through 12th. So when we first had our first meeting, I remember that very well. It was very quiet because people didn't really know each other. So it was my job to get them to start talking. So we did an icebreaker, and we did, remember this? We did 2 truths and 1 lie game. And slowly they started introducing themselves, where they came from. And we did our first goal of T-Lab. They developed it themselves within 10 minutes. And I'm going to read you the goal of T-Lab. To increase the attendance, quality, resources, communication, and fun of teen programs in Palo Alto. So 10 minutes. We used the whiteboard, we all took turns, and we were able to come up with that, which falls in line with our Palo Alto mission. It also, T-Lab is also a part of the Palo Alto community. So it's kind of like Project Safety Net in a way, because T-Lab is like a support system for the library's teens. And this is what we do. We plan positive programs by teens for teens. And let's see. So T-Lab is all about teamwork, creativity, and positivity. For example, the latest project we did was Post-its for Positivity. You may have seen it. We had a nice, beautiful mural up in the entrance of Mitchell Park. It was about 500. Ujwal did a really good job mathematically estimating how many Post-it squares there were on that mural. And he did a great job. He's super smart. I really am thankful he's on our team. So any stats I need, I ask him. Like today, he wanted to know how many toys we collected for the toy drive. And I presented the picture, and he said 100. I said, yes, let's go with that. So I have a picture of the mural. I just want to show you really quick. And later on, I'm going to pass this around so you guys can see it. So this is the mural. Oops, sorry about that. So, and I'll pass this around too, so you guys can see it. T-Lab is creative. They also came up with their own logo. This is the logo. One of the students is I can't draw. They did a great job. They did it first on the whiteboard. One of them is an artist, and then they all took turns with the whiteboard markers and just started adding to it. We kept the T-Lab name. They thought it was important. And so basically, I just wanted to thank you again, and I'm going to introduce now one of our stars, Tiffany. She's helped me out a lot. Tiffany, come on up.
Hello, I'm Tiffany, and I'm a rising senior at Gunn High School. So the project I'm going to talk about is positivity. And so we decided, because towards the end of finals and AP testing week, which was around late May and early June, we decided we had to come up with an idea to alleviate the stress of students during testing, and some had to retake AP testings. So what we did is we had shoe boxes distributed to various locations like Gunn, Castellea, Palo, and one at the Mitchell Park Library. And we had Post-its on the side of the shoe boxes for anybody to write, alumni, students, teachers, or any kids to draw pictures or to encourage them through advice, experience, and just motivation to get through the week. So we did this for a month. And after that month, we collected all of it from all the various locations, and then we made the beautiful mural of the sunrise that Gina just mentioned. So I helped, majority of my part was through building the sunrise mural, and through this process, I learned, I felt really good doing it. So I saw, as I was building the wall, it was during library hours, so many people coming in, whether kids, they'd be like, look, it's a mural, and they'd be really happy. And some even offered to write some advice on the empty Post-its. So yeah, so after it was built, I was really proud that people could recognize it was a sunrise, because that was kind of hard. But yeah, so overall, I feel this kind of project really symbolizes what Palo Alto, this community, is about. It's really supportive. There's elders, kids or adults or alumni that can gather all their experiences and share them with the whole community. And so it's you have to, we have a really strong support system, and I feel even if you didn't look at the mural, you didn't read or stop and look at it, just the thought behind it, like the picture, can really like brighten up the atmosphere in Palo Alto. And I even took one of my favorite quotes. So my favorite quote was from a Gun senior, and it said, "You're at the finish line, all you have to do is cross it." And so I feel like that was really motivational for me, and it really helped me like, you know, boost some like confidence in my test taking abilities. So overall, like, I feel like the takeaway is that Palo Alto is such a heartwarming and supportive community, and there's no challenge that's too large for us to take on. Thank you. And now
Thank you, Tiffany.
I'm going to introduce Christine.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Hi, I'm Christine. I'm going to 9th grade at Palo next year. So last year we had our first International Games Day in November, and it was an event over 2 days that celebrated anything that was related to games or gaming, even board games. And at T-Lab, we basically planned the event from start to finish. We helped plan details such as advertising, like I advertised at my school and like on social media, and which games to put on, job assignments, and snacks. And I helped out at the event both days. A few of the T-Lab members and I helped out, and we helped set up, clean up, and set up the snacks and games. And we had games set up in the teen center, and computers for computer games in the tech lab, and we also had like a ping pong table, I think. And there were I enjoyed playing some of the games too, and there was also a raffle for movie tickets, and I won. Yeah, we figured it was like a added incentive for teams to come. And all in all, I thought it was really fun. I made some new friends. I enjoyed meeting new people. I liked playing the games, and I also gained experience. I also saw that people had so much fun on the first day, they came back for more games on the second day, so I thought that was pretty cool too. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Christine.
And next, I'd like to introduce Ujwal.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here today. My name is Ujwal. I'll be a rising sophomore at Palo in the fall. It has been my honor to serve as the president of T-Lab this past year, an experience that I thoroughly enjoyed and found very meaningful. Tonight, I would like to share with you one of the many projects we completed. In the run-up to the holidays in early December, we organized a toy drive. We reached out to the community, collected new or gently used toys. In total, we collected over 100 toys. 100 gifts, such like toys, activity sets, and art sets. We donated the entire collection to our partners, the Ronald McDonald House. In many ways, this project symbolizes what the library is about. We were able to give back to the community and celebrate the holiday spirit with generosity and goodwill. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the members of T-Lab. We have truly worked together as a team and have contributed in valuable ways, giving our time, talent, and energy. I would especially like to acknowledge and thank Gina, who has played an important role in guiding and supporting us. We look forward to another impactful year in strengthening our community. Once again, thank you all for coming here tonight and your continuing support.
Thank you, Ujwal.
Can we ask any questions?
Just one more thing and then. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
This will be really quick, I promise. So I wanted to also thank, and I actually have some certificates of achievements for Tiffany, Christine, and Ujwal, and I wanted to present them for their outstanding hours of community service. Tiffany. And Christine. Thank you, Christine. And Ujwal. Thank you so much, Ujwal, for everything. And I wanted to present this also. Thank you, thank you.
Yeah, and if you have any questions for me or Gina or the teams, then
Jenny, why would I ask you when I've got the teens here? I mean, exactly. So, for next year, I like all the things you did. You did the mural with the Post-its, you did the game day, and you did the toy drive. Would you, exactly, I mean, those are the things we heard about, and in fact, I like when I see on Facebook what you guys are doing, so the mural I saw on Facebook all the time, and I think you'll find that the very first like on there was mine. And will you anticipate doing the same things? Some of these are pretty good benchmarks. Wouldn't it be fun to do the same thing next year so people were anticipating it? You may want to do other things as well, but I just didn't know if you looked at these as things that it might be useful to repeat. You can answer.
Okay.
Up to them. They'll tell you go over here. Why don't all three of you come over here?
So yeah, we talked about it the other day we were taking down the mural, and then I'm speaking for Michaela, another T-Lab member, and she said that wouldn't it be a great idea to continue the mural? For example, on Father's Day, we could have Post-its and people write their favorite memory of their father, and then make something, make a tie or something, and then put it on, make a mural out of that too. So yeah.
Actually, one thing that we did in a previous library was do a mural with little cutouts of where people traveled from, how they came to Palo Alto, and, whether it was on a boat or a plane or a car or whatever. And it was a really neat opportunity to see how people arrived here. And I know that we've talked recently to some different groups who've said, yeah, it might be a nice way to make people feel welcome to know more about them and where they're from. So just put that in the back of your head.
Go ahead, Christine.
Okay. Well, I think we'll be doing a lot more of these events. We have a lot of events for the summer. We have a henna tattooing thing and a manga art event, and yeah, I think we'll be doing a lot more.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Do you want to finish?
We really like to continue these events, but also expand. Maybe we can, as Tiffany said, we can do more than one mural a year. We can also explore other projects.
Yeah, I just have a quick question because you're teens. I'd like to know that how important for you to use social media to reach out teens. Do you think that's the most effective tools, or you have other things in mind?
I believe social media is a great way to get through lots of people very quickly. Personally, I don't use a lot of social media. I think word of mouth and just telling your friends is a great way to also advertise and publicize the event.
Did you do anything to keep track of how many teens were involved cumulatively in all the programs? Like in the game days, how many showed up, and, was there 40, 50 kids? And for the toy drive, did you have 100 toys, so I would assume 100 kids, and so that's 150. For the Post-its, you had 1,000, and so now you got 1,150. And did you do anything like that? Do you have a baseline so that next year you can say we doubled the involvement or something?
I don't think we really counted every single kid, but we kind of estimated how many Post-its we got and how many kids went to this event. So yeah, we're kind of keeping track, I guess.
I think the librarians are keeping track because that's part of our annual statistics. So yes, we could figure that out.
I would just like to add, at an event such as the International Games Day, we handed out raffle tickets. We can look at how many raffle tickets we handed out to get an idea of how many people attended.
Right, there's lots of ways to estimate.
The reason I'm very interested about social media, because I know some kids like you don't have Facebook or Twitter account. So if they're interested in all the activities you have in the libraries, how do you reach out to them? Because they don't have the social media. So the next question is, I'd like to know, how do you promote your activities? How do you reach out other than social media?
So like through some of our events, we had morning announcements. We posted we had like the morning announcements people say it on the morning announcements at Gun or Palo, so make sure the school knows about it. Also, we had flyers that we made sometimes, and we posted that, handed out to like each of the members to distribute it across their friends and placed it across like school campus and stuff.
So my third question would be, so I don't know, it's just a suggestion. So next time, maybe you can find out how these teens will show up because they saw the message from the social media, or they saw the flyers, or they heard the announcement from the morning broadcast. So maybe that's a good way, because we want to include everyone, because I know lots of students, probably because of their parents or other reasons, they don't have social media, but we should include them as well. Okay, thank you.
One of the things that I noticed is that the number of participants and the number of programs have been increasing. So there's been a lot more teen activity, which brings up the question of, do we have the facilities and the time that you need for all of these programs, all these activities? When we built Mitchell Park and expanded Wicanata, we specifically put in areas where people could meet and study rooms and so on. And I understand they're used very heavily. So one of the obvious questions is, do you need more? Do the libraries have to be open longer so you have more opportunities to use these facilities? Or you feel you've kind of leveled off and you've done about as much as you're going to? Do you feel comfortable with the facilities that you're allowed to use or we have offering for you?
I don't think that we need any extended facilities or hours, because most of our events are in the daytime. But we did have a specific event that needed an extended 1 hour. That was during finals week, where we had 2 or 3 days during the week to have the library closed till 10 instead of 9. So, yeah.
Okay, so they do it for you if you need it?
Yeah.
Okay.
One last thing, just a suggestion, because you are Teen Lab members, and so you are the you're on the first line to reach out all the teens. So maybe you can help us understand more about what they think of the library, what they think what library should improve in terms of collection or services or facilities or something like that. So maybe you can help us understand more about teens. Okay? Thank you.
Yes, it's really nice to see this activity going on, especially over the last couple of years. I know when I first came to the Library Advisory Commission, one of the things Monique said was that I believe there wasn't a teen librarian, and the library staff, I think, were concerned to have more focus on that. Did I get that right? Or maybe?
We did have them, but it was maybe somebody who split their time between one thing and the other. So we have definitely followed a plan that Jenny created when I first came here, and basically I had coached her and said, if you want something, the budget cycle takes a while, and the planning, you got to wait till you can move the people around or things like that. And I think a year ago, she said, I can't believe it. I actually have everything I wrote down and all the people I asked for. So it works if you can, show the justification and the need for it. So we have 14 librarians, and then we have someone with tweens, or no, not yet. Coming up. So tweens are the in-between children's and teens, so younger. Mm-hmm. And then we have how many children's librarians?
We have six of our librarians are at least part, either fully children's librarians or half teens,
Half children's.
Children. We have someone who's half adult and half children.
So we have a very robust youth services staff, I would say.
Yeah.
And I I think it reflects the council's priorities and the city's priorities as regards supporting teens and contributing positively to their development. And, I think we've got a great staff focused on that.
So, yeah, wonderful to see this going on and to have a chance to talk to you guys. And I hope we can work together more. It's really great. Thank you so much. Go, or if you want more to say more, Jenny?
I just wanted to thank the teams in particular.
Yes. Thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you so much for giving us this opportunity.
No, you're excused.
Thank you.
Good job.
And I think, of course, we should thank Gina and Jenny
Oh, yeah.
for getting them
Yay.
there.
Yay, Gina and Jenny.
Okay, good. And thank you, Gina, for coming. Yeah. So the next item on the agenda is noise control, and we're 15 minutes ahead of time schedule, so we're doing very, very well
Good,
here
so
tonight.
hopefully we'll continue
Yeah.
to stay on that pace.
And who is going to, is that?
That would be me.
You, okay.
And Gayatri will help chime in if we need to. But I included a memo from Ruth Ann Garcia. Oh, Gina, I don't know if you need your book, but it's over there.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks, that was great visuals. There had been some concerns, and there continue to be ongoing concerns about the noise level at Mitchell Park. So I asked Ruth Ann to talk about what she has done, what changes we foresee coming, and so she put together just a basic memo talking about how we are proactively working with staff to ensure that they are approaching people as needed. I think all of us have spent a little bit more time in the building at different hours to better understand the noise. We also did a tour with Group 4 and heard what their sound engineer consultant had to say. And so they've come in at different times of the day and week to monitor the amount of noise and to talk to staff about what their observations have been, and to come up with some options. So we've officially created a quiet zone on the east end of the second floor. That's behind where the shelves are, overlooking Middlefield Road. That sort of was kind of a self-imposed. I know that every time I've ever walked back there and spoken to anyone I've been with, I've gotten a lot of dirty looks. Most people are wearing headphones, frankly, and they're not noisy headphones. They're sound canceling. So I think that we may be hearing from a specific group of people who don't perhaps study or read that way. But so we do have. It doesn't mean complete silence, but it is people working individually, as well as along the study carrels that face out towards the library parking lot. So those are areas that are quiet. They're meant for individuals not working in groups, and hopefully that will provide an alternative, and it's easier to control. And it follows a model that we've seen in some regional libraries of zoning the types of noise that can go on. So the recommendation that we had with the architects in terms of some architectural options include actually there were a number of things we could do. Some of them large structural changes that might impact other systems like HVAC or the heating and cooling system, the lighting system, something like that. And as a LEED Platinum building, the city is pretty invested in maintaining the systems as they were designed as much as possible to continue being that model for environmental sustainability. So we're conscious of that and trying to keep that in mind. So, working with the staff again to sort of lower how they're talking. One of the big things that I noticed actually was that because it's a raised floor, because many of the systems are underneath, we have 2 feet of open space. If you're a heavy walker like me, I might not be talking at all, but I sound like an elephant walking through that building. And if you get little kids, even if they're not shouting or making any noise, they're kind of half running, half walking in excitement to get to the children's area, and you have 10 of them going, it makes a lot of noise. So I think we realized there's a lot of kinds of noise that are going on. Yes, there are screaming children, and when the children cry, it's a long way from the children's area to get out the front door. And you have to go through the entire building, through many hard surfaces that bounce the sound up to the second floor. People could go out onto the patio. That was one of the reasons we designed it that way. But I think that in their minds, and having been a mother with 3 small children, all I want to do is get out. And that's probably the longest 100 yards I've ever had to go in my life. But you've got one here and then one's mad because they weren't making a fuss, and so you're trying to just get out. So we'll work with staff to encourage people to use the patio outside and do that. One of the things we did notice is that the windows are doing a fantastic job of keeping the street noise out, because we opened that door and all of a sudden it was very obvious you really don't have a lot of the outside noise coming in the building. It does a fantastic job in that respect. So we're going to look at some acoustic wall paneling in areas where there is a lot of tile, a lot of hard surfaces, and very little carpeting or absorbent sort of sound material. And this will include the area in the entryway, around the circulation area, just to absorb the sound as much as possible there. And in some other areas in the children's room, although there's a lot of soft furniture, there are some spaces where there are some harder walls in the corner where the sunlight is, things like that. So we're going to get some prices on that, figure out what we can do. Public Works was on these tours and has some suggestions. And then if that doesn't seem to do it, then we'll sort of go to the next level. We'll look at, okay, what's the next architectural thing? Glass walls, raising the glass on the stairwell so that the sound doesn't maybe go up as high into the second floor. Again, continuing to work with staff in the computer lab room. Maybe there's other situations, but the acoustic panel, I feel really confident because all of us have been in libraries in the past or in our just user experience where they've had community meeting rooms or rooms like similar to the library that had tile floors, hard furniture, not a lot of soft stuff to absorb sound, and the acoustic panels have really taken care of it. And many, I don't know if there's maybe been 3 libraries that I've been in or worked in where those have been implemented, and that solved the bouncing noise. It may not work here. This is an unusual building, but for the most part, we're hoping that as much as we can absorb it, that'll reduce the noise. But all of us said, even when there were a lot of people, there were times where it was still pretty quiet. Every seat could be filled, and it was still pretty, it depends on the time of day that you're in there, how many people are coming in and out the front door, those kinds of things. I can't make Ada's stop selling frozen yogurt, nor do I want to, and that seems to be a big attraction and a source of noise after school. So, so these are the steps we've started. This is what we're working on at Mitchell Park. We don't experience the same problems at Rinconada, and I would guess even though visits are going up, I would say it's because it's one story. There's a lot of things that can absorb sound in that library, and you just don't have the same acoustics.
Is it
Thank
allowed
you,
to
Monique.
have food in the library? Is
Yes.
it allowed? Mm-hmm. So any kind of food they can have in the library?
Yeah, in most cases, we've found that if we say no food, then they still bring it in their backpack. They try and hide it, and that's when you end up having more spills. Or they hide it in the bookshelves, and you get ants, or you get things like that. So if people are allowed to, then they bring it in and they dispose of it appropriately, and we have fewer spills, fewer issues. For the most part, people are eating outside, but I have seen people bring in food.
Yeah, and my other question, I agree with you. When I was there, I feel still quiet. So I would like to know what particular time will the library feel the noise. I
Yeah.
remember it's like after school, it's like around 3 or after 3, that time. So what about now? It's a summer break, so how about the noise?
So during the summer, you don't have it as compacted a time. It's spread out more throughout the day. The use is spread out. So it's generally, and there's often more activities because of summer reading programs. So there might be a little higher energy, but it's, not as compacted. Most libraries from 3:30 to 5:30, that's the peak time for having kids who are noisy in the library because they come there after school and wait for their parents. So the kids who are there with their parents are probably not as noisy as the kids who are there with their friends after school.
You mentioned about the zoning, the quiet zone. Is it very close to the international language section?
It's right around the corner from that. So international languages are here.
Yeah.
Middlefield, it's on the other side of those shelves of the nonfiction.
So do we have a sign over there to tell people that this is quiet zone? So
We do
to
have some
lower your
signage
voice?
that's going up in those areas, yeah. Just on the table, small, nothing really big.
Oh, okay.
And we also included big signs in the children's area that basically say, we want you to run, try and not say, don't do all these things, but, walk, don't, so it's a positive message about not shouting, but, talk it, use your best inside voice, I think is what we
Inside
say.
voice, yeah.
Yeah, those kinds of things.
Have you had a lot of occasions where a librarian has had to go up to somebody who's noisy and say, please quiet down?
Yes.
Is it common or is it uncommon, is what I'm trying to get an idea for?
Well, we try not to shush people just because that's sort of the stereotype of the librarian. And we can, these are active learning spaces. People are doing a lot of things above and beyond. But yes, people will go up to them and say, could you please, or we used to go up to people on phones, although most people on phones now are not loud talkers anymore. But it used to be, you'd have to ask them to go outside and finish their conversation or things like that. So we do approach the parents if the child is being rowdy and, and it regardless of age, because it's not always kids. I mean, we always sort of think it's teens and tweens and kids, but that's not necessarily the case.
I also noticed that we provide toys in the children's section, right?
We do,
And some children will fight for the toys.
Yeah.
So how do we look at it? How do we look at this? We provide the toys for children, and maybe it would create more issues.
So the toys are really an important part of early childhood development and early learning opportunities. All of the things that we have are things designed to teach or help develop some aspect of a child's, some aspect of their development, which will contribute to them being readers. And I think it's great that they have to learn to negotiate and share, right, with other kids, because that's the real world. And I've found that in my own experience as a children's librarian, the kids who come to story time, the kids who come to the library, they've learned that I don't get to use that for the whole time, and I have to sit quietly and let other people take their turn, and all those things that we talk about being important and valuable. The library really does contribute to that development, being part of our social groups and leading into that community engagement. So we think it's an important part of learning and development. And I was going to turn to Jenny because I know she went to a, this whole thing about brain development and learning, and looking at toys as an important part of that. So those will stay. And I know a lot of people see it, as just a playground and, not an opportunity for quiet, just being silent and things like that. But, it's an important part about language acquisition and development, so.
So I know we used to have like a little computer for children to use, and there's a sign to let children know that every child has 30 minutes to use the computer. I'm not sure about the toy. Do we have that kind of? Do you think that's?
No, we don't. And hopefully we wouldn't need to get to that point. I would think that most kids would probably be bored with it in more than 30 minutes or less than 30 minutes, but and move on to the next thing. So I have not observed the big fighting other than maybe siblings, but we'll keep an eye on that. Just keep monitoring it, or add more.
I, for one, am very happy with what the staff is doing relative to the noise and the level of problem it is, so thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and, I'm impressed with the amount of effort that you and your staff put into just looking at this in a sort of an objective manner. What could we do? And bringing in actually going so far as to bring in the, who is it, the?
Group 4, the architects.
Yeah, the group 4 people to, so, thank you very much for that. And
Sure, you're welcome.
I think just having regular awareness is going to help a lot also. So thank you very much, and we'll look forward to hearing more.
Sure. I think, the staff are really great. I think they get intimidated because sometimes when you do approach the parents or the child, they get very irate and they're very angry that you have dared to discipline or talk to their child. And, it's one of the things about how some of the social changes that have taken place affect how we can do our job. But, we say, no, we want you to stay. But sometimes you need to go outside and play. Go to the park, go to the playground and run around for 15 minutes.
Go burn that energy.
And come back and we'll try again. Because we want, obviously, to keep the kids engaged with the library throughout their lives, so.
Well, and I think there's that dichotomy of you want to encourage them to interact, you want to encourage them to learn, you want them to think that the library is a great place to be. You don't want to be yourself the librarian who isn't that way, but it's a community and people need to respect each other, and anyway, I really appreciate everybody's efforts.
And it is often adults making noise.
That's what I think.
Fighting over the computers or, things
Or
like that.
just talking, thinking they can talk in a normal voice, which
Yeah.
to me is like.
Or
you're
writing,
talking.
or they're the ones that write the letters about the noises.
Yeah.
Or typing we have some hard typers. We've actually talked about this as a staff, that there are some people who really must just take their aggressions out on the keyboard, and it's very loud. And so that's just, you can't do anything about that.
Or have very long fingernails that go click,
Exactly,
click, 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 click.
exactly. So yes, so we continue to monitor this, and we'll continue working on it.
Okay, so the next item, any other comments? Next item on the agenda is LAC Council Buddy assignment.
Did,
Sorry,
did we just finish the librarian's report? Or
Oh, no, wait a minute, that's next.
a separate topic,
that's a
right?
separate
That's
topic.
after on the
Okay.
agenda. For
Yep,
some odd
okay.
reason, we're not gonna let Monique keep talking. We're gonna stop.
Well, I'm
Talk
going-
about council buddies, but
I'm
she's
going
gonna
to be
say.
the person to talk about council
Okay.
buddies, because
Okay,
Evelyn has not, Evelyn did not come back to the table as she was intending to. So I have the list of who had which buddies in 2016, 2015, 16. And I don't know if you want to make any changes. I don't know if you guys just all want to stick with who you've got. If you feel like you've got a rapport, or if you've not been able to get in touch with them, sometimes swapping then kind of freshens that perspective, and they hear from more than one person on the same thing, then they realize, oh, that might be really important if two people have said this. But Karen Holman was Sheena Chin. Pat Burt was Hagan. Mark Berman was McDougal. Eric Filseth was Loy. Liz Niss was McDougal. Greg Scharf, Hagan. Greg Schmid was Moss. Corey Wolbach was Chin. And Tom Du Bois, who's the liaison, was also Moss. So I don't know. I leave it up to you to give me direction on what you'd like to do.
I would suggest we just leave them the same, because as of November, you're gonna have some new council members anyway.
Okay? It's up to you guys to,
I don't think it needs a motion or anything, does it?
when we could table it till November,
Yeah.
maybe.
Okay.
So put it on the November agenda. Would you remember
it would
that
be
for us,
it
Evelyn?
would be December.
December agenda? Okay.
Sure, we could do that. Alrighty then. That was easy. Thank you.
And you're up again.
I'm up again, but we actually have a load of stuff for you. You're probably wondering what
Thank you.
happened. Did you collate? You're so nice. Thank you. So, because you did not get this in advance, you'll have a lot of things to read. But I will go through it a little bit more thoroughly than I normally do. Sorry that it's a little late, but being a week early, we didn't have a lot a week ago to include in the packet. So I did want to let you know that we, at this moment in time, are fully staffed among the management group. Alex Perez began on the 14th, and he replaces Chad Helton. So he'll be, and you saw the announcement that I emailed out to staff. So Sierra is moving along. We are getting fewer and fewer complaints. I look at Gayatri to confirm that that's true. That is true. And we continue to implement new modules as appropriate and as directed through the help of the vendor. One of the things that we did do was ask to be able to reopen our sort of practice area since Alex is joining us, even though he comes from San Mateo County where they use a Sierra, and he's been familiar with the innovative products for years. We wanted to have a place where he could go in and try things out if he needed to, in case there were some things that were different, and also could report issues that needed troubleshooting to the vendor. So we were able to do that. Orange Boy, I did include screenshots of the most recent dashboard, which looks like this. And I apologize for the size of the type. This was the best I could do today. You'll notice that the last date data was uploaded was May 21st, so we're about a month behind. But you also can see that along the bottom, for example, at all locations, you can see that we still start with December 2015 right here. So like you're looking along the bottom. And so you see where the gap is, and then we come back into current time, up now able to upload information from and data from Sierra. One of the things that I did want to point out, that our market penetration continues to increase. You'll see that on the second page. So we're at about 46%, which in comparison to other Orange Boy users continues to be really high. I know that doesn't sound like a lot to those of us who want 100%, but 46% is really good. So I know you haven't had time to look at it, but feel free to ask me questions as time goes on. We are bed bug free. We will continue to do inspections a couple of times a year. Summer reading program is going well. I hope that you all have signed up. As of this week, we have over 1,000 kids, over 400 teens, and over 450 adults who have signed up. But again, we're concentrating on completion rate this year. We want more people to complete the program than just signing up and going away and not finishing.
And does that mean they meet their own goal, right?
Yeah, so if your goal is to read one book, you have met your goal, you get a prize, whatever. So, yes. You heard from T-Lab, the youth librarians. We did 2 evening events for kindergartners as part of the library card sign-up drive with the kindergartners. We issued about 40 new library cards to kindergartners, and we feel like most kids that age have probably been part of the library with their parents, or they may be a little too young for a parent to want them to have their own card. It depends on the family, how they organize their books and materials. But we're gonna keep going with that.
Skipped a couple.
No, I said summer reading. I talked about summer reading.
Repair?
Public Works.
Oh, the bike repair stations and
Well, you
the,
skipped the one I was.
okay. So the bike repair stations and the drive-up returns, the plans that needed approval have been approved, and it was not just the kind of thing we could pick a spot and just plunk them down. It actually required Architectural Review Board review. We had to pay planning department our fees, all of those kinds of things. So no good deed goes unpunished. And they hopefully will be installed by August. And all of the other Bike Pals things should be done by August as well, which includes 2 programs for children, teen or adults or families, and the Safe Routes to Libraries map.
Great, thank you.
Okay, sure, I read that one out loud. So you also had received, or maybe you had seen on the Facebook feed, the posting of the dedication plaque at Rinconada Library. All the other libraries the new libraries had their dedication plaques installed, and all of a sudden I noticed, hey, you guys didn't do this one. So Public Works said, oh yeah, okay, we'll go ahead and install that. So it's now in the lobby, which is very nice. The Welcome to America programs are popular. They're doing well, and we've delayed the 3D printer deployments. It all of a sudden occurred to me that if you're burning plastic to print something, it probably can't be out just in the public in a LEED building. We had built copy rooms for copy machines that are separately vented to get extra LEED points. So the staff are investigating what's the lowest emitting one now, and what should we put it, how should we contain it, or what should we do? So I think they wanted me to stop thinking that day because it was like, oh, they were so close. And then I said, hey, wait a minute. We have lead points. It's a lead platinum building. How do we do this? So they're working with Public Works and the architects to figure that one out. And we had 3 librarians leave us this month, 2 retired and 1 left for a new position, a promotional position. So we will begin recruiting for those staff. Also attached are April and May packets for the digital resources. I know you guys like to see this, and you like to see sort of what our social media feeds are doing, how many people are accessing us, and what kinds of days of the week are the busiest, those kinds of things. So April and May are attached, so you can take a look. And I think that's all that I have. Strategic plan review update. I did want to mention that our work plan from last year, we've accomplished quite a bit towards the goals that we have in the strategic plan, but not 100%. And most of them have to do with staff capacity and how many people were here, and Eric and Chad left about the same time, and, you know, getting things together. So as we get closer to starting the work, because we're about 18 months into a 3-year plan, and the State Library offered training from the Harwood Institute. And I don't know if you're familiar with Harwood, but you can Google that, Harwood. Harwood and the American Library Association have worked together for a number of years, so I had done a pre-conference about their methodology of really engaging the community and talking to them. And we will have the group who did that training come and do a short presentation here. It's Diane, well, not here, but here for you, for the commission.
Here.
Here, yes, here at City
Virtually here.
Hall. But they'll come and do a presentation and talk about the key points, things that they learned, and how our application to participate was based on the fact that we created what we think is a great strategic plan using a lot of information from the community, but we want to continue that going forward. And I think what's really interesting is that when they came back, one of the librarians immediately started applying what he had learned and walked out and just sort of did basic questions like, what do you want from Palo Alto, or what do you want from being here? And what was interesting is they heard a lot of the same things in this very short amount of time, in just talking to people for 5 minutes in 2 different libraries. One of the interesting things was that they really want a sense of community. And for a number of people who were not longtime residents or necessarily Americans, their feeling was they were not made to feel welcome here. That they said people in the grocery stores don't talk to each other. People, you know, that there's not as much communication as they may have experienced either in their country of origin or in other communities. And so that was a really interesting thing to have heard from several people just in this casual conversation approaching people in the library. So we'll have them come and talk about Harwood and how we're going to use it for the next version, the next iteration of the strategic plan. And it's really interesting if you think about these survey results, as well as thinking about how you have conversations with people and have them talk to you about what it is, and then leading them more finely tuned, like, well, what could the library do? How would you like the library to help you with that? Or can the library provide solutions? Things like that. So that's what we're doing with the strategic plan. Any questions?
I'm just curious. You mentioned about the three staff member will leave in June, and you mentioned that one is looking for, or one is heading for a new position.
Yes.
I'm kind of interested, because this library is very good, so I'm kind of interested to know that which position that this person is heading for.
So this is our cataloger, and she is going to Mission College, where she will be the head of the division. So kind of like what Diane Lai does, but because that's who she worked for. So it's a promotional position in an academic setting, which is very different from a public library. And she's, it's a great opportunity for her. We are a great library. However, once you're a senior librarian, if you're not interested in going into management, that's it. Whereas if you go to a larger system or try something new, like an academic or a special library, or you go to San Francisco or San Jose, then there are greater opportunities for variety of types of jobs or differing levels of responsibility. So, yeah.
We should take it as a compliment that our people are.
Well, I will
Capable
tell
of
you that
taking
of
these
the
jobs.
of the 3 finalists, 2 of them came from our library. So we're
impressive.
it is, yeah. And I've never been upset when somebody told me
Right.
that they're leaving. I think it does reflect really well on us,
Yes.
and it gives us an opportunity to find somebody who will bring something new to that job. So this person was fantastic, inventive, and in an area of library work that is very precise and driven by a lot of rules, not from the library, but just from, because to catalog it, you have to describe everything you're doing, and she did that with digital resources and three-dimensional objects and, all kinds of things. She had a real creative way of looking at that, so we were very fortunate that she set this up. We had a consultant who came to, was asking us questions for another organization, but just looking at our catalog. And they said, wow, your catalog's really clean. Meaning everything's in really good shape, everything's in the right place and the way it's supposed to be. So the data in is very strong and very accurate. And we owe all of that to her. So, at least for the last couple of years. So she's, Mission College is very lucky. So there we go.
How are you doing in recruiting to replace the retirees and the librarian that left?
We, the recruitments will open this summer, and that we always have quite a few applicants. But we are starting to fall behind in terms of salary compared to other jurisdictions around us. So we have a little bit of a challenge there, but a lot of people like the culture that they see when they come to Palo Alto, and we kind of have a reputation for doing some innovative work and for librarians to be able to kind of pursue things they're interested in. So we do attract people, and certainly there are many more graduates now than there are positions. So we do have a choice of a lot of entry level. These are actually they're not entry level positions. They're intended for people who have some experience. But the hard part is you have to be willing to commute, because most people can't live here. And we don't necessarily pay kind of, what everybody else is paying. We have filled a position recently. It was another retirement that happened earlier this year, and the candidate is coming from Washington, D.C. So she'll be here in August when she moves. But we've recently had Washington, D.C., a woman from Florida, a gentleman from Chicago. So they're all coming from places, and and Kansas. We have a librarian from Kansas. So we're getting people from all over the country who either somebody in their family is moving to this area and they're looking for a job, and our jobs then in comparison sound pretty fantastic. But we do a thorough job of vetting them on, here's the reality of living here. And you need to understand the expectations in terms of where you might reasonably live. Most of them, when they come here, they find some temporary housing nearby, maybe not even that nearby, but then they sort out where they're going to live more permanently.
Until you mentioned Kansas, it sounded like you were bringing people in that had bigger transportation problems than.
Yes, I know, it
Right.
sounded like that.
We have a
but-
bad transportation problem, but you ought to know what Chicago is.
Yeah, I've been driven in Chicago and DC and all of that, and I still think ours is worse. But I am confident that we should have people on board by mid-fall. It takes a few months.
Yeah, I just have one more question related to the report. When when she mentioned about the opportunities to volunteer, it seems that the hours is going down. And the statistics is for last year, which is 2015. And we know that we increased the staff numbers, and we have more staff on board. So does that mean that we will have less things for volunteers to do? Or the hours for them to volunteer will go down?
We actually probably have more for the volunteers to do simply because we're busier. We really want to engage the volunteers in offering programs. We have so many people in the Palo Alto area who have professional skills or interests and hobbies that translate well into a program. Doesn't mean they might always be the best presenter, but we can usually pair them up with someone to do that. So I know that Gayatri is been working with the volunteer the volunteer points of contact at each branch to understand what kinds of opportunities we've been having for them. So you'll hear more from her in an upcoming meeting. But no, I think just because we have more staff, we're still scrambling to keep up because we're so much busier. So.
In terms of volunteer, your observation, do you think that they're kind of reluctant to volunteer more, or it's just the hours that we can provide them to volunteer is less?
I think there are quite a few opportunities for people to volunteer, not at the library, but in so many other places in the community, so many nonprofits, so many different kinds of areas of interest. So I think, again, we compete with a lot of people. In many communities, there's not very many places for people to volunteer. We also have the teens who are interested in doing their community service, and that's all they want to do, right? So
Yes.
that's a very limited time. It's a lot of investment in training, so we try to find activities more than just you come every week for 2 hours and that's your thing.
And we look after you.
And we can certainly, people can volunteer any of the hours that we're open. So there are things that we could find for them to do, and we're reevaluating what is the scope of that.
So in terms of volunteers, because we know the T Lab members, there are some of them are even younger than, because I know we have the rules for the teen volunteers, they have to be like 16 years old. Is that right?
I don't think so. Do they have to be 16?
As far as I know, they have to be 16 years old.
Okay.
So,
Well, I don't think so, because if we have, you know,
You have junior high students.
junior high school
so-
students, they're not gonna be 16.
Well, are they officially volunteers if they're part of
Right,
the
so-
T
No, but
Lab
they're
or
T-Lab.
not?
It might be a program, right? They
Yeah.
might not be counted as volunteers.
So
Or
you
it may
mean-
be a special opportunity, right? We do, like when we did Make X, you know, we had junior high school age kids who were part of that development and building that and advising us. So,
So basically, for the teen volunteers, there's no, I cannot say there's no age limit, but it's not like 16 years old. It's not. It's like as long as you're like a sixth grade, seventh grade, or eighth grade.
yeah, I think
You're
so.
capable
It
to
depends on
volunteer?
the program that they're working in and how we set that up. So, I mean, if they can't work they can't work individually on their own.
Because I logged on to the website, it says you have to be 16
16.
years old. So that's why when they showed up, the Teen Lab board members, I was kind of interested to know if it says that the volunteers has to be
Right.
16 years of age, then I think one of them is like only
But the,
incoming
But
ninth
it's-
grader.
but they're not volunteers.
They're not in the
They're not
volunteer program.
Okay, so it's totally different category.
Yes, yeah. If you're wanting to come and volunteer and do the regular volunteer activities having to do with maybe putting out the magazines or shelving the DVDs, then you're expected to be of an age where you can be responsibly left alone and doing that. These teens are with a librarian all the time. It's a program. They are giving us volunteer hours, but it's not in the same volunteer.
But I remember you mentioned about what kind of work that volunteers can do. If I remember correctly, you mentioned that volunteers are not allowed to put the books back to the shelf and do that kind of thing.
Sure, not books, but DVDs, yes. Because DVDs were not considered to be a core service of the library. The core service of the library was to check in and out books.
Okay.
And so anything that's considered a service enhancement, which includes the VHS videos when we had them, the DVDs, those kinds of things, could be
Handled by
handled.
volunteers.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Those were, that was when they first started the program, that was the way the definition would work, working with the union members, working with the unions.
So if the website said that volunteers has to be 16 years old, is there any particular reason that the kids have to be 16 years old? If they want to volunteer earlier, would that be okay for libraries, or we have?
So the website has not been updated in a while, but we do require that, we do have some requirements that are the same as people getting employment. So if you were to go for a job and you were 16, you would need a work permit signed, and you would have 16 and up is sort of where there's a real delineation. I know that I worked when I was 14. I worked when I was younger, but 14 legally because I had a limit and my parents had signed something special, and at that time there was documentation like that. But for the volunteer website, I believe it's targeted at the adult volunteer program. So I don't know if
It's
it was,
teen.
that
I
was the
checked the
teen?
website, it's teen, yeah.
Okay, well,
16.
like I said, it has not been updated in a while, and we'll look into it. I do know that we no longer require, I also know there are parents who didn't want their kids to be fingerprinted, because there's a fingerprinting requirement, and there was also a TB testing requirement. We no longer are required to do the TB testing, but the fingerprinting is one of those things. We were the only library in like almost the entire United States that I could find
Did TV?
that was doing the TB testing.
So I'm thinking that this
Expected to come
is
back.
a good subject to talk about, but that we're very near the end of our agenda, and perhaps if we have a lot more questions, maybe it should be a subject
So,
for another meeting?
yeah, teens volunteer. I see that there's a separate I don't see anything about being 16. But, When we're done, you can show me.
Yeah, sounds like a follow-up later, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, thank you anyway.
Sure.
But, I mean, I guess we could ask the question, since the number of volunteers is lower and it comes up and blah, 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 blah. Should we talk about, get an overview of what's available, or is that just,
We could ask for that.
yeah, well, I don't know if
I
I don't know how important it is in our list of priorities to really find out more.
One
But
of the
I
people
wonder
we're
if it's important to you, Mati, tell us more.
It's a lot of, I mean, we value the volunteers tremendously because they really enhance what we're able to do. That said, it's a lot of work for the recruitment, for all the paperwork that goes along with it, for the training. If they're young, they may just be doing this till they get a job. So sometimes it doesn't last long. Sometimes it does. Sometimes we create, really engaged volunteers who stay with us for many years. So it's one of the areas I don't worry about as much, though I know it continues to be a question that the city council asks me, because somehow in their heads, they do hope that you could run a library using volunteers, which that's not going to work. And I've explained why, and they understand that. But I think if we're looking at ourselves as a community resource and part of the community, it's one of the things that we do. And we'll be happy to come back. It may not be at the next meeting, but we'll look at the volunteer program. And one of the people that we will be recruiting for will be working on the volunteers as well. So we have not had someone, a specific person other than Eric was assigned to it, but we don't have, we just have points of contact. We haven't been doing a lot of recruitment. I mean, if you look on the website, it says we have no opportunities at this time.
It sounds to me like it's a good subject to consider for 2017 meeting.
Yeah.
Later,
Great.
because it's not time yet on your side.
And I would suggest it actually could maybe be expanded into community engagement, because one of the numbers we got on here was that as a community, not necessarily the library, but as a community, the engagement was a question. And maybe we should anticipate that somehow and see if we can structure something that doesn't become onerous to Monique, but expands it beyond just volunteers.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's not just, well, what are you doing, and what, it's more like, what can we do?
Right,
the
and
question.
and the community engagement piece, I think you'll see from the Harwood thing, how we do that. The working on librarians being more embedded in, other nonprofit boards and things like that, continuing to work on that. Again, we're pretty busy at home, so,
Yes.
we're doing what we can, and we will definitely get you a report. Because I think it's a great opportunity to showcase what the library has. And so as you bring new people in, whether they're teens or adults or older adults, we're happy to do that, so.
Okay, good. Getting lost with my pieces of paper. So we kind of went quickly over into volunteers and things and didn't quite finish up with the strategic plan review, which was to say thank you very much for letting us know about it. And
Sure.
for the activities and the progress that you've made. Because basically you said, I think that work plan was fairly aggressive. And you were saying that you've really done most of it, so that's good.
We've done a lot of it, and we had to create a new work plan because, of course, it's another year. And I think, and one of the great things that Guthrie did was look at the work plans of all the other departments and see if there were opportunities for the library to intersect with them.
Well, that's good.
So we'll be getting in touch with those departments, the managers in charge, and seeing, just listening to them and trying to understand what their needs might be. Or if they're doing something that, it would be good for the library to do that too, and maybe there's economies of scale and things like that.
Right, that sounds great. Okay, I think we could move on. We, I think, have no council liaison report. And does anybody have anything they wish to report on since the last meeting? Bob does.
Yeah, I got an invitation to participate in the cook-off, the July 4th cook-off as a judge. I was wondering if anybody else had been asked to judge, or I wonder if they picked commissioners or they just picked me.
They picked all the commissioners.
They do.
They invite all the commissioners, for
Okay.
every, and the ELT members. So you should have all received that in your inbox
We did,
today.
we did. Can,
So, and it had instructions, so you follow,
you have to follow the instructions and register
yeah.
and give me your fingerprints and, if I could, going back to to Monique's report, I always read all the letters that come in. And, the one thing that I noticed that was interesting here was this lady who wrote and talked about, inclusiveness in the bathrooms and whatnot. And it
correct.
seemed, all it says is we send it off to facilities, which I think is the thing that you probably would logically do. I do think, considering the way things are going in, in the nation in general, trying to anticipate that might be a good thing for us to try and get ahead of, rather than, I don't know how we react or what the city does, but.
Yeah, it's already been
taken.
taken care of.
Okay,
So, they're ordering signs, and
great.
those bathrooms in particular are single stall restrooms, so they will be looking throughout the city then, I could think, but,
Okay, thank you,
so.
thanks.
Good move.
Yeah.
Do you have any reports like from Bhopal or?
Did you go to, I didn't see you at the last meeting, so I can mention just a couple of things if you want, or unless you talked to Nigel.
Yeah. I was asked to comment to the neighborhood group about how the libraries are functioning now compared to what they've been doing before. I haven't put anything together yet, but I intend to mention, that the library is doing a lot more in terms of activities, meeting rooms, getting teens involved, not just a storage place for books, which we might have been 20 years ago. And how positive the interaction has been in the community through the new services we're offering.
Good.
I have a question since you are here, College Terrace. 5 branches, they're ready to serve already because we finished all the renovation and rebuilding and everything. Do we have a plan, or do we have any thoughts about each branch? For instance, here, College Terrace, it's not very spacious. And we know that new community, when I drove here and I saw the new building, and we know that there will be more residents here, especially from Stanford University. They are going to build a new community here, neighborhood. So have we thought about how we're going to face the increasing users in the future? Actually, maybe at the end of this year, they will move in. For the College Terrace, if we say children's libraries for children, and Recanado Library, it's so quiet, so peaceful, and maybe more adults. Of course, we have children area there. For Mitchell Park, it's combination. It's children, it's the size of children's library, and for adults as well. And for downtown, maybe for professionals. there because of the location. What about the college terrace? How we define the college terrace? Do we have plan or do we have any thoughts about that, especially in the future when we have more residents here? Does this library have enough services or any related things
right.
for our patrons?
That's a good question. Each library now, wasn't always this way, but each library now serves pretty much every age group, because you do have a children's section here. We do a lot of programming that helps with the preschool or the daycare. That's the other half of this building. Yeah, on the other half of this building. This is a historic structure. It was renovated before downtown, so it has been recently renovated. It is the size that it is. To do something more to add on would be a challenge like we had with Rinconada, because it's a historically significant building. So I suppose we could try and kick out the daycare, but I don't think that would be well received either. So I am not trying to do that to anyone who might be watching this. So the way I define this branch, because I do have an audience in my mind, and it is, we see a lot of people who work in this area, who work up the street and around here. They come here at lunchtime, they read. We see a lot of, a couple of schools. We see a lot of, then really the neighborhood, the targeted neighborhood. And we do programs here. We do activities. Summer reading program is offered here. Some of the special events are held in the park, and we do things, that way, so that because obviously it's not a big space. They had a very active origami program here that met weekly for a while. We were talking about resurrecting that. So they have sort of their ongoing thing. And if you come in, I don't know how often you've ever come into this library.
But this library, as far as I know, it closed 2 days a week.
It's closed 3 days a week.
3 days a week.
Correct.
So 3 days a week. So how could a person expect this branch would do more if it closes 3 days a week?
Well, we'll look at the staffing. The staff who work here are needed to work at the other libraries on the day that it's closed. So on the Thursday that it's closed, those staff work at Rinconada Library. It's not that they, they are there to cover for other staff who have that day off because they work on the weekends. So, and that's been the big thing, is that this community would like the library to be open more days. We know that. We've heard that. It's in the survey results.
So of course, I may not ask you to give me the answer right
Yeah.
away, but I think this is something we have to plan and
Sure.
think about, especially as I mentioned, the new neighborhood. They're going to have more residents here.
Sure, they're going to have 4,000.
They will ask more.
They're going to have 4,000 graduate students.
Yeah.
And when I met with Stanford a couple of months ago, I asked, are they families? Because it's a lot of families who come here. And they said, no, there cannot be more than 2 people per unit of this graduate area that they're building. So it's singles or couples living together, but not families in what's projected, this 4,000 people area that they're building that's going to go along there. So you may be talking about something else that may have families, but the construction that's going to be closer to here.
But the construction, they're just building the houses over there. When I drove here, I saw the houses, and that's the first phase for that's called, what is it called? But anyway, so you can see that right away. It's there. It's
Yes.
not like the plane, it's not like the
I
layout or.
I understand,
like
but what they're projecting is a total of 4,000 people that are going to be housed in this area. So that may be phase one.
Yes.
But again, thinking about the mobility, what are they using? Are they using things on campus? Are they using things here? You know, we'll take that into consideration for sure.
Well,
Yes,
and I think we have
yes,
to take
thank
into
you.
consideration what is our obligations to provide public library to Stanford residents.
That's another consideration. And a third consideration is the fact that you could also look at on a square foot per capita basis.
Right.
How do we compare to other cities?
Right.
How do we compare to, you know, what we have available?
But those 4,000 people are not going to be added to our 65,000 population. That would
Correct.
tell city council to allocate more money to you.
Correct.
At all. You don't get any benefit from that.
No, actually, they are included. There's, if you look at the ABAG figures on Palo Alto, they have two numbers. One of them is the people who are residents within Palo Alto, and the other, a larger number, includes Stanford. They
Right,
just,
it's a contingent area, I understand that.
Yeah.
But in the 65,000, that's the population of Palo Alto. That's not I forget the term for the contiguous,
well,
contiguous
we
area.
we
It
are
might be in our
expected,
sphere of influence.
we are expected to serve a portion of the Stanford campus area, and that's included in the traffic counts and parking and public facilities. They're here.
Right.
You know, and they're gonna use the facilities occasionally. I think that it's a little bit early to be talking about the budget next year, but we should consider looking at whether we wanna ask for more staffing to increase the number of days that this library is open, for example, and also to be, let's say, forethoughtful about additional services and use of the facility
Right.
that may occur as a result of Stanford expanding.
Correct. Yes. Because when I saw that on the map, I thought, oh, boy. And, you know, maybe it's worth having one of the presentations coming up being from the planning department and how do we plan when Stanford makes changes, something like that. That could be a possibility. So at this moment, you know, we don't have specific plans for this library to make any changes other than adding programs, doing things like that, or changing the way that we do programs. But certainly, I hear regularly from different people who live in this neighborhood or who are involved in neighborhood association activities. We participate in their picnic that they have here. We do things with the schools, so, who are adjacent to us, walking distance here, so. So we do serve a role. So,
Stanford is being very closed-mouthed, by the way, about what they're planning on doing for development and how many people they're planning on bringing in. I don't know if you're aware, but they had a series of public poster sessions, I guess you'd call them. And one of them was over at Terman, which I attended. And they had all these posters all around the walls and on tables showing what Stanford has today and had 50 years ago. And Jean McCowan, who you may know, you know, she's the PR person for Stanford and former council member in Palo Alto, was there, and I asked her, well, how much is Stanford planning on expanding? You've got 7,000 undergraduates and 9,000 graduates. What are you going to do and where they're going to be? And she wouldn't answer it. She wouldn't talk about how many more housing units, how many more graduates, how many more undergraduates, how many more total. They just said, well, we're thinking about it. So it's going to get dumped on us, and we aren't going to have any advance notice until very late. And I think the libraries are going to have to provide some services for these people.
So-
well, you know, we can talk more about this, I think.
Yeah.
Because
agenda
we would love for more Stanford students to actually, you know, anyone in the state of California can use our library. Anybody can come get a library card and use our resources. We would encourage that. We, one of the bike outreach projects that we want to do is go out onto the quad, early in the year and trap all those freshmen and get them to sign up. So, I don't know that this would be necessarily the most appealing branch for someone of that age, but, it's not impossible. And, because it has a charm that I think has been well preserved in the current configuration and the architecture. And so we can talk about this more as we go on.
Yeah, I think one thing that probably we need to just recognize, just for the record, Palo Alto decided, when they decided to work on the Mitchell Park Library and renovate Rinconada, that they're invested in the 5 branch libraries, and this is one of them. And we support it, and it gets a lot of use, and it could get more. And I think we're having this conversation because we're here today, and which is part of the reason we decided we wanted to have our meetings in the libraries, so that it would spark this sort of conversation. It's too bad we don't have more community members that come to these, but the library is speaking to us, the building is speaking to us as we're here. So, I think, so I'm not quite sure what we would do. So an action item or a question I heard was, should there be more support for more hours? Really, that was the basic thing I heard, and then other thing I heard was, and is this expansion in Stanford going to tax the city responsibilities, which include the libraries, unduly without any help coming from, or whatever? So I guess, so do we need to have the planning people come?
I don't know that they know anymore, but maybe I can find out.
Maybe you could ask them if they know anything, and we don't have to put them on the agenda, just find out if there's
Sure.
a conversation going on.
Could you also, I don't know if we have the data or not, do we have any information about the local community here, College Terrace?
Yes.
Do we, so could you just let us know? Because this area probably, we don't think of too much of this area because most of the library is the other side. This is the only one here. So as for me, I'm not very familiar with this community. So I would like to know more about their thoughts and opinions about our service here. So if we have this kind of information, please share with me. Thank
Okay.
you.
There's probably data in here.
Probably.
Actually, the answers are probably in here. We should read this.
Very general. It's very general.
Well, I don't know. I mean, certainly there were opportunities for people to be involved during the planning of the other libraries, and when they did the renovation on this library. So we'll see what information we have.
Okay, that sounds good. And I have to turn my view up. Don is going to say something.
Well, Madam Chairman, are we ready for a motion to adjourn? Do we have other topics?
I did actually want to mention that August 25th, we will resume meeting at City Hall. We've done our tour of all 5 libraries. While it's been lovely, it has been extremely complicated and has taken. So we really appreciate the cooperation that we've received
Yes.
from all the
Yes,
TV
thank you very
folks.
much.
I think it's probably given everybody a real appreciation for what they've had to do for a lot of things. So, and thank you to Evelyn for schlepping
Yes,
all the
Evelyn.
time. So I want to remind you that you can be prepared to go back to City Hall, so it will take forever to find parking, so please factor that into your attendance So that was my one comment and announcement. Gayatri, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Just that I'm delighted to be here.
So now it's been actually like a full, I don't know, 6 weeks.
Yes.
So, yeah, we're
Can,
thrilled.
can I say one more thing? Just
Sure,
quick thing.
sure.
Could you just suggest the city government, because all the commission meetings are in City Hall, most of the commission's
Yes.
meeting. Can they preserve some parking spaces for us? Because sometimes it's really hard to find parking space. It's just suggestion. If they can, that would be wonderful.
I think the issue is that the parking enforcement ends at 5 o'clock. So there wouldn't be anyone to enforce it.
Well,
But-
there's a wonderful secret. It's called the downtown library.
Although tonight
And
they
it's
were,
worked for me every time. I
well,
don't know.
tonight they were waiting back there, so there must have been something
Something, yeah, so
going
not
on.
tonight.
But,
huh?
Just
And
the
now I
suggestion to
told
see
the
if they
world.
can,
Sure.
they can make it.
yes. Okay. Okay.
I think I'm waiting to hear a motion.
I move the meeting be adjourned.
And a second?
I'll move to adjourn.
All in favor? Aye. All right, thank you very much, everybody.